Hello everyone, I am Kati Orru. I am from University of Tartu, as was mentioned already, and I'm extremely honored to be invited to talk here about our research and our research results that also feed into the preparedness planning and preparedness initiatives in Estonia, but also more broadly in other European countries. So our research group, which some of the members are already also present here, I'm very glad about that. We have been also working on the refugee issues, and we have just a few weeks ago actually published an overview of refugee situation and the Ukrainian refugee experiences in Estonia, and this was published in a very highly renowned international journal, and I would be really happy to share this information later on if you are interested and can forward this to you. And the authors are actually also in this audience. But in this talk, I will be focusing mostly on the preparedness and preparedness capacity building, and from the perspective of social vulnerabilities. So I'm really glad that actually also previous presenters brought this aspect out, that we don't often need to focus on the sort of physical capabilities and not only the institutional capabilities, but also the individual resilience and also the community level resilience that is very much also linked to our vulnerabilities. And so our kind of main position or our main thesis is that understanding our social vulnerabilities is the key in order to also build our preparedness. And also to allocate resources to the areas, not only infrastructures, not only the sort of institutional organization, but also the sort of societal support networks that protect these capabilities and avoid the vulnerabilities of becoming real big damages. So I'm going to focus on vulnerabilities, not only because of these are the sort of crucial disaster elements, and this is where the most damage happens, but also from the perspective of kind of theoretical understanding of vulnerabilities altogether. So what we have seen based on analysis of different European countries' preparedness building, and also how they interpret the vulnerabilities to disasters, we see that actually the dominating perspective is to focus on sort of predetermined groups, the usual suspects, we may say, the disabled people, the people that are that have also maybe they are the elderly people or people with that are minors. So these groups certainly have some pre-existing sort of vulnerabilities, but actually the real disaster situations have demonstrated that these the vulnerabilities can be much more diverse, and they are often accumulating in certain groups due to not only the individual vulnerabilities, like your lack of knowledge or lack of skills or your mental problems, but it's also about the societal structures that are, for example, the support networks that may not be accessible to you in the disaster situation, or the poor functioning of the institutional support, for example, poor access to the social care in the disaster situations. So these aspects often interlink and accumulate in certain groups, and this is something that needs to be taken into account when considering the different vulnerabilities. So it's not only the predetermined groups, but it is also the very scenario-based and very kind of situation-specific how these different vulnerability factors may interchange and interlink and accumulate. So in my talk, I will explain a bit about how we approach the vulnerabilities and who may fall into vulnerable situation in a disaster, and why, and how do we actually measure it, and how do we evaluate it. and what are the sort of most recent developments in this field that we have also contributed with. So, and then the next question is, what kind of assistance do these people need? What kind of assistance do they need in the preparedness phase and also during the disaster itself? And what kind of, then the logical question is, how can we ensure that we have these capacities to prepare these people, but also prepare our structures to be supportive enough in order to avoid major damage to health, people's livelihoods, people's living conditions. So I'm going to introduce you a scheme of vulnerability triage that we have been putting forward and have been working on several years already in collaboration with Estonian Rescue Board and in the frames of several European projects and also supported by Estonian Ministry of Interior. So here we start with a hazard scenario, mapping out the different contextual situational aspects related to the area, related to the type of hazard, related to the general context of the situation. In addition to that, we also go very much in depth in terms of the related conditions related to the direct hazards, the exposure to chemicals, or the type of exposure that is happening in the situation. Second aspect that we consider in this scenario-based analysis is the disruption of different services, because limited access to, for example, the medical care, rescue, or social care, or other services that may be disrupted in the situation clearly also damage or also threaten the conditions of the people that are relying on these systems. Of course, this relates to also the other critical services and infrastructures. Third aspect that we pay particular attention to is the communication barriers. It was mentioned already by the other speakers as well, that the communication in terms of not only the accessibility to different kinds of peoples with their different information use behaviors, but also the understandability or the comprehensibility of the message to different types of people with different cognitive abilities and so on. So this is critical to understand not only the accessibility but also the understandability, but also thirdly considering the motivation to react to this to the information. Just the issues of lack of trust. Lack of trust has been also very much emphasized in our analysis of different scenarios that we have gone through with Estonian authorities. So based on this specifying the disaster conditions in particular scenarios, we go to the analysis of who is actually affected. So here we look into the people that have already these sort of preconditions, or they may have like health risks already before the disaster, for example, some chronic diseases, or people with mental problems, or for example, people with very limited social networks that would be available to support them during the disasters. But also we are looking at the vulnerabilities that evolve during the disasters. So in our analysis, we focus on both sides, the pre-existing as well as the vulnerabilities that have developed during the disaster. And based on this analysis of the critical situation and specifying the disaster conditions and juxtaposing or analyzing the concrete group's situation in this particular scenario, we get to the end point of output to the crisis managers, basically, also the crisis preparedness planners. We have an understanding of what type of assistance is needed for these people, how urgently it is needed, and who should provide this assistance. So based on this information, we also want to go to the analysis of which capacities are actually needed and what is the current state of these capacities in order to support these people that have been demonstrated and evaluated as the most vulnerable in these conditions. So this is the overall scheme of the preparedness assessment system that we are proposing. And I'm going to explain you some of the details and some of the results from the application of this analysis. So here is, just to explain a bit once more the details about individuals with prior health conditions. We are looking into in terms of their kind of pre-existing vulnerabilities, but we are also looking into those individuals whose health is impaired during the disaster. For example, people get wounded, people get mentally damaged. Individuals may be in material insecurity already before the disaster, but also during the disasters. Obviously, many people may lose their material security, may lose their living environment, living conditions, or they may not be habitable anymore. Individuals with social support networks, we very much emphasize that these can be limited. We have lots of marginalization. Also in Estonia, we have, in our research, we have dedicated special studies on that as well, on our coping, but also during the disasters. For example, the very simple, very most closest, and probably all of us have actually lived it through during the COVID time. For example, people couldn't access their social support networks, and this actually has accumulated into a major also public health threat in the long term due to these isolation effects. But also, we are looking into the individuals with dangerous misrepresentations and attitudes, and individuals who have formed these attitudes due to in the disaster situation. So, this is an example of this report where we have that we have carried out based on the report is based on the exercises and the scenario-based analysis that we have conducted with Estonian stakeholders, and here you can see the basically the different groups are prioritized based on their need of support, and also it's interesting, like this where you can see the red columns or red marked column. This exactly also demonstrates their need of support and the urgency of need of support. And what you can do with this report is actually you can also sort the groups based on their urgency of need, based on the type of support they need, and also based on the organization that should provide this support. So it's a sort of a very operational tool in order to see who needs to be doing what and when. In a disaster situation, and this can be also used in order primarily in the preparation phase in terms of thinking through what could be the needs and who should be available and to prepare and with what resources. Here is an example of how we have conducted these exercises, this scenario-based analysis. It's actually a very recent case where we have used this analysis tool in a very, very distant part of Europe, in the middle of Indian Ocean, an island of La Réunion that is under the jurisdiction of France, where you can see very, very good preparedness systems due to their regular exposures to tropical storms. But what do? They do not have a very proper vulnerability analysis. So actually, even in a very well-structured system, we could offer them a sort of a new angle to analyze the social vulnerabilities. And why I bring this photo also is to demonstrate actually the types of people who would need to be behind the table in order to do these analyses is very diverse. Here we have purposefully tried to expand the range of people and the range of experts that are present in this analysis. So it's not only the first responders or the crisis managers, but also trying to extend it towards the local government, the social workers, for example, or representatives of socially or physically vulnerable people, for example. just to extend the people of and the expertise that is bringing their knowledge and their experiences to this analysis. And clearly these discussions have been very heated, and debate around who should be prioritized is quite intense in these discussions. So clearly also the stakeholders don't have very clear understanding who should be prioritized, but such kind of exercises try to, and hopefully provide a systematic basis in order to think through the different groups and their needs and who should be supporting them, including the community themselves. So here is an example where we have used this social vulnerability triage in the case of Estonia. We, about a year ago, when we had a mass evacuation sort of exercise or drill in southern Estonia, we were invited to participate with this exercise, and we had quite a large discussion group of experts to look into the vulnerabilities that need to be looked into in the context of mass evacuation due to a military attack in Tartu. So here, what is noteworthy is clearly the groups that get the highest score. So these are the groups that would need to be evacuated based on the intelligence data, based on the kind of prior understanding of like when the attack is going to happen. So these groups would be, for example, users of electrical medical devices, severely ill individuals in home treatment, or people with reduced mobility, or people in the care facilities, of course, were also pointed out as the ones that need to be evacuated beforehand. At the same time, also we considered, of course, the other people that may have stayed in the area and they may not have evacuated beforehand, may not. Yes, but these need to be prioritized as well. Like, whom do you provide assistance, and what type of assistance is actually needed here? So it's not only it's quite noteworthy that in Estonian exercises we have. Always it has been pointed out that these people that do not trust the crisis managers, or people that have misconceptions about the hazard, these would need to be attended very, very carefully. And clearly, of course, this is something that needs to be done already basically all the time, and we need to be working on this right now. But also during the disaster time, this needs quite a bit of attention. I'm going to quickly go through also this preparedness and capacity building part of this analysis. So based on the vulnerability triage, what we do is we get the mapping of these different vulnerable groups, but also the different organizations and community hubs, for example, or the local government of officers that are sort of allocated these tasks based on the discussions that we are having in these triage exercises. So this is helpful to map out the system of organizations and entities that need to be prepared and need to think through this preparedness. And what is preparedness in that sense? Here we also suggest a sort of a framework in order to analyze the different kinds of preparedness kind of vectors or domains, and it's not only the governance side, it's not only about the allocation of different roles and responsibilities and our coordination mechanisms, but it's of course about the services and the infrastructure, whether the risk analysis for the different services that might be affected is actually conducted. Is it actually the preparedness measures taken up and resourced enough? But it's also about the communication aspects and the accessibility and understandability of communication, how these processes thought through. Is communication accessible also to different kinds of people with different kinds of communication habits, information seeking habits, and it also relates to the engagement of population. Are they actually engaged in the planning of, for example, the evacuation scenarios? So here are the results from Estonian exploration, and based on this mass evacuation event. So it's actually Estonians are very modest, and Estonian experts who have responded to this capacity analysis, they demonstrate actually that there are very many shortcomings that they still need to be addressed. I would particularly point out, and based on the interviews that we have conducted along this analysis, this quantitative measurement, particularly the training of the first responders and the crisis managers in terms of relating to those groups that were pointed out as vulnerable, their capacities to talk to them, to handle them, these are limited, or also the different kind of social care organizations or other facilities that take care of their inhabitants, for example, their capacities to understand the context of the evacuation was pointed out as very limited. So many areas to be worked on, but still we have some indication of which is more critically pointed out by the crisis different stakeholders in crisis management. So here is my conclusion. Social vulnerability triage definitely helps emergency responders to identify and prioritize these different vulnerable groups. It can be an input to more effective risk mitigation planning, but also interventions to be assigned to specific authorities. So that's quite important that we also understand who should take care of these preparedness measures. And I finish here. Thank you very much.
Very nice. Some questions, if I may. Are these results designed specifically for Estonia, or is it also usable in other countries as well?
Yes, actually we have, it has been tested and in different European contexts so far. We have been to Malta, to Rotterdam. For example, in Rotterdam, we had a scenario of CyberRNE event in La Reunion, a tropical storm event. So this scenario-based analysis, it's actually very much applicable to other situations as well. And in addition, for example, this relates to your field, Lauri. We have also played it out in a cyber attack scenario.
Aha.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's actually, it demonstrates that the groups that we would need to be thinking through, or the categories more or less hold in different scenarios. Yeah.
Cool.
With some specifications.
Now, in your view, what makes some people not to trust crisis management messages? You also list a group of people unfamiliar with local situation. What sort of people they could be, like migrants? Or?
Yes, with this we mean migrants, but also tourists is quite a big group. In many scenarios, we see that actually tourists are the people who might not be aware of the local communication channels with the European harmonized communication systems and early warning systems. I think this can be definitely avoided, this accessibility problem. But in terms of the lack of trust, I think it's generally very well recognized in Estonia that we are increasingly polarized, and also I think the last years of kind of economic difficulties, the security issues haven't really made us more coherent in that sense, that it's actually even more kind of bigger clashes, bigger division between the different societal groups, and particularly the groups that do not feel really as they would be belonging or would be benefiting from the Estonian welfare system, for example. So these groups are something that really need to be carefully attended. At the same time, when I have been talking about this about these different groups, then and to different audiences, then the medical professionals would absolutely argue to me that actually why are we paying so much attention to those distrustful people? Why shouldn't we should maybe put more attention to the people who are like in a single mother families, for example, or people that are pregnant, for example, that. In disaster situations, we need to make these difficult decisions and
who to save.
Yes, exactly, who to save. And in that sense, I think this systematic view and thinking through the different groups prior the disasters is, and also kind of when we have a bit more time to philosophically reflect on whom to support or whom to help. I think these are
it's a very interesting ethical question, that who to save in crisis. Doesn't everyone need, let's say, deserve saving?
Indeed.
I'm not talking about
Indeed, we have the principle of not leaving anyone behind, isn't it, with the Sendai framework and so on. But in order to allocate the resources in the most sensible way, we still need this prioritization.
Yeah, and then on the polarization, what you say, that I think that's happening not only in Estonia, in the whole free world, which is getting this. My hypothesis is that people have been just living too well. The life has been too good, very simply said. Wow. Yeah. Now, about group thinking, which might be also negative. How your method avoids it? Getting a wrong group thinking, right?
I guess the group thinking in the analysis process, for example.
Probably. Yeah.
I think that's very critical, that we try to expand the group and kind of diversify the group that is making this evaluation or going through with us this exercise of evaluation, just to. And so far, well, it's very, very difficult to tell actually when it is the groupthink, when the groupthink starts to prevail in these discussions, because, yeah, obviously we are, as researchers, we come from outside and we have our group thinking.
Yeah, it's everybody's tied to their groups, but yes, how to avoid it?
Yeah, well, I think it is that we try to bring, next to the first responders or official crisis managers, we try to expand the group of thinkers, and kind of group of evaluators towards the, for example, representatives of the people with disabilities we have had in our discussions, or people with like, for example, homeless people's associations representatives, soup kitchen representatives, for example, just to bring some examples of the diversity, or also social workers, for example, that definitely are the ones who are very often need to handle the disaster outcomes and the recovery stage, but they, I think, until very recently, they haven't really been invited to these circles of decision-making and preparedness thinking.
So the right answer is to have diversity in groups and also diversity in the society in crisis, to have better solutions.
If we are thinking about the groupthink in terms of the like how it actually affects the vulnerabilities becoming real, that's another question, definitely. So the group, like, this is definitely in effect also, and particularly it's problematic when we see it in the very much kind of polarized circles, or people who do not trust authorities or do not trust the crisis managers. Like, how do you avoid the groupthink there in these circles? Like, when they are very much concentrated in their own communication spheres, in their own communication, also social media definitely amplifies this groupthink in these smaller polarized or
I would argue that the first phase
the outskirts of society.
Usually the first phase of crisis brings people together. When it gets longer, then you start to have this polarization, of course, more and more in time.
Yeah. Right. As we saw, for example, very clearly Estonian different surveys or polls, actually very nice. No, it's actually not a very nice picture that we see, that when we during the time of the invasion, the polls demonstrate the Ukraine Russian invasion to Ukraine. We saw that the rates of Estonians' attitudes towards helping their neighbors were quite high. And then
I was surprised, right?
But then I think indeed I think this talks to your kind of idea of this solidarity that the crisis brings us together. But then now, after a couple of years already in the wartime, when we see also the kind of negative effects from the economic downturn and so on, our kind of willingness to go and help other people's or at least our claims to go and help actually have decreased. Mm-hmm. So this.
But it's impolite not to help, so we still do it.
Sorry.
It's impolite not to help.
It is, but actually,
so
like people
so
are.
Continue.
It's a sign that actually people are a bit more hesitant. They are insecure. True. They are more maybe also a bit individualized in their thinking of security, and probably this, yeah. So
right. Sorry, I could spend the day talking to you here, but thank you very much, Kati, for sharing this.
Thank you.
Very balanced.